afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. Merci d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. My name is Kina Leclerc and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Kina Leclerc et je serai l'animatrice de ce point de presse. Before we begin, a quick reminder to place yourself on mute until I invite you to speak or to ask your question. Available for questions from the media, we have disponible pour répondre aux questions des médias, nous accueillons in council chambers, Mayor Le Maire Jim Watson, Steve Kanellakos, City Manager, Directeur Municipal. Phoning in today, we have Councillor Keith Eglai, Chair, Ottawa Public Health Board, le conseiller Keith Eglai, Président du Conseil de santé d'Ottawa, Dr. Brent Mallockney, Deputy Medical Officer of Health, médecin-chef en santé publique, Rick O'Connor, City Clerk, greffier municipal, David White, City Solicitor, avocat général des services juridiques, Stephen Willis, General Manager, Planning, Infrastructure and Economic Development Department, Service de la planification, de l'infrastructure et du développement économique, Dan Chenier, General Manager, Recreation, Cultural and Facility Services Department, Service des loisirs, de la culture et des installations. I will now invite each agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. Oh, please note that Michael Morgan is also on. Michael Morgan est aussi présent. Par ordre alphabétique, j'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. If for some reason we lose you during the call, please try contacting Media Relations to submit your questions. We will now begin with Kate Porter at CBC Ottawa.
It got quite heated there today. I wonder how you would explain that it got to that point and whether you did turn off Diane Deans' microphone.
Well, this is an emotional issue, obviously, not just for members of council and staff, but for the whole city that has been let down by RTG and RTM and Alstom. And, people have strong emotions on the best way to go and approach getting a remedy for the situation. And as a result, I'm very pleased that it was a good, solid vote of confidence in our new Auditor General, who will take on the responsibility, and she will come back with the scope and so on, because we can't direct her what to do, but ask her. And I'm very pleased with her answers and the motion by Councillors Gower, as well as Councillor Cloutier. And my job as mayor is to maintain order. And when you have 4 people talking, that's not sensible and it's not productive. And so my job is to maintain order and make sure that one person speaks at a time. And the deputy clerk did cut off microphones so that we could have order brought back. And I support that. And once people get back into the rhythm of following the rules, then it was quite a civil debate for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
En français, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur le maire.
Oui, je suis très heureux avec le résultat. C'est vraiment un vote de confiance pour...
Quite happy with the result. It was a vote of confidence in our new Auditor General. We were looking for the best way of finding solutions to improve the light rail here in Ottawa. Thank you.
My second question is for you too, Mayor Watson. Since the Taywin expansion lands are mostly owned by Taggart and not the Algonquins of Ontario, do you still think they should be the ones that are brought inside the urban boundary?
I do. It is a partnership. It doesn't have to be a 50-50 partnership. Lots of projects around the city are developed with more than one proponent, and it's not, again, always a 50-50 split. But certainly my understanding from discussions I've had and questions I've asked is that there is a profit sharing for the Algonquins, and I think we'll have a fulsome discussion tomorrow. I believe there are over 80 delegations on all issues that want to come and discuss the official plan. It's obviously the most important planning document that we have at our disposal, and there's a lot of interest. I think we've made a lot of very solid improvements since we went out for public consultation over the course of the last year or so. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we will be going to Alex Gouge at City News Ottawa.
Hello. So my first question is for Mayor Watson. Do you feel the investigation from the city's Auditor General will help regain the public's trust in the transit system?
Thank you, Alex, for the question. Yes, I do. Our Auditor General, as you know, under the Ontario model is completely independent. It's up to her to make the decisions in terms of what is to be audited and how it's going to be audited and the scope. And I have great confidence, as did a strong majority of members of council who voted in favor of the Auditor General reviewing what has gone wrong, but more importantly, what can she recommend on a go-forward basis to ensure that when the train system is up and running, we don't have the kind of terrible situation that we witnessed over the course of the last month or two. Thank you.
And my second question is for Dr. Malotny. With 3 COVID-19 related deaths in Ottawa today, what concerns do you have about the current status of the pandemic?
Yeah, no, thank you. It's obviously tragic to have people pass away due to COVID. The first thing I would say is that we have vaccines that are highly effective at preventing hospitalization and death, and we need to continue to maximize the numbers of people who have vaccine, and that continues to rise. And we're starting on provincial direction, providing third doses to particular vulnerable settings, and I think over time we'll see additional groups added. The other thing to point out is that when people have looked at the deaths that have been occurring in people who are vaccinated, and while it's very, very rare, it can happen, and it's amongst people who are either very old and or have significant comorbidities, significant serious illnesses. And I think I would stress to those people that importance of being vaccinated, absolutely, but also importance of being cautious in terms of the extent of their social interactions. And I think for all of us, we all have to look at ways to continue to be cautious, particularly with the Delta variant, which is essentially all of the cases here in Ottawa, which is much more transmissible, to look for opportunities to reduce the opportunities for transmission, to protect ourselves, but protect our family members, and protect our society overall.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We will now be going to Craig Lord at Global Ottawa.
Thank you. Mayor Watson, I was wondering if you could just respond to some of the assertions today that you and members of council who were present in 2012 when the Confederation line was first improved have something to hide when it comes to potentially not supporting a judicial inquiry for that reason.
No, I disagree with that. I think everyone acted in good faith. We accepted the advice of our experts. I know, for instance, Councillor Deans was an active member on that file as the chair of OC Transpo at that point, and I have no hint whatsoever that there is any inappropriate behavior on her part or any other member's part. I have full confidence in the Auditor General to get to the bottom of why the company we hired and paid good money has let us down time and time again. And at the end of the day, I have confidence that she will bring forward a series of recommendations, both looking backwards, but more importantly, looking forward to ensure that we don't have this kind of problem and challenge on a go-forward basis. Thank you.
Just to follow up, you said in your wrap up that your priorities right now are getting the trains running again safely. Is there anything you believe council did today or can do to get trains back on the tracks sooner and with a more concrete timeline than we have right now?
And the important thing, Craig, is to continue to keep pressure on the consortium to ensure that they act in an urgent fashion. That there is this sense of urgency on the part of everyone within their organization, from the president of Alstom and RTG, all the way to the women and men who are working on the floor to get the trains ready on a regular basis. So I think the legal action that we gave direction to our staff today is a good step, because obviously the consortium is not receiving any money. until they fix their problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig. Nous allons maintenant passer à Julien Paquette à le droit.
Bonjour, la question serait pour M. le maire. Je veux clarifier un peu votre position sur l'enquête judiciaire. Je comprends que ce qui est assez clair aujourd'hui, c'est que vous préférez confier une enquête à la vérificatrice générale. Ce qui semblait aussi assez clair, c'est que ce n'était pas le bon moment pour demander le déclenchement d'une enquête judiciaire. Ce que je veux clarifier, c'est est-ce que vous êtes complètement opposé à l'idée d'une enquête judiciaire sur le sujet, ou c'est une option qu'on pourrait réévaluer plus tard?
Reevaluated in the future. Well, I supported Mr. Gower and Mr. Klutzy's motion to have an audit undertaken by the Auditor General on all things related to our LRT, because I think that is the most effective and quick way to find answers. It obviously costs a heck of a lot less than a panel with a judge, which could be from somewhere from $10 to $20 million. So I'm very happy with the vote of the council today on this issue. As I said, to ask the Auditor General to undertake a serious study for us to determine just went on in the past, and more importantly, how we can improve the situation in the future in phases 2 and 3 of the light train development.
Et
Thank you.
encore pour vous, Monsieur le maire,
And a second question for you also,
sur la
Mr.
motion
Mayor. On the motion,
Diane Deans et je crois M.
I think it
Brockington
was Diane Deans and Mr. Brockington on
demander au directeur municipal et à la haute
who asked
administration de
the city
présenter
manager
les différentes options.
to
On
present
inclut
different
là-dedans la
options
possibilité de qu'est-ce que
on
ça,
how to replace
coûterait, qu'est-ce que ça
the
impliquerait de
RTM, and
résilier
they
le
asked
contrat
what
avec
what could be involved
vous,
in
personnellement, à
resiliating
ce
the
point-ci,
contract
avec
with
tous les
RTM. At this point in
problèmes qu'on a
time,
eu depuis
with
2
all the
ans,
problems that we've
vous en
gone
êtes
through these
où
last
par rapport à
couple of words,
cette
how
idée-là
do you
d'une
feel about
résiliation
this
du
idea
contrat? Est-ce que
of breaking
c'est
the
quelque chose
contract with RTM? Is this
que vous
something that
considérez
you
sérieusement?
would consider? Seriously? Well, this is the first step for us here at the City Hall. At this point in time, we have no idea of the cost of canceling the contract with RTM and RTG, which is the reason why I was the seconder of the motion to undertake a study to gain all the information necessary to see what the best way forward for both passengers and taxpayers on our light train system here in Ottawa. If it costs a lot of money to break the contract, would it be a good idea to do so? If we lose, I have no idea. That's what we're going to look into. And are there any other companies who could replace RTG and RTM? For now, these are only questions that we're asking ourselves as a first step. And I certainly support the idea that we hold this discussion behind closed doors, because it's our strategy of suing RTG and RTM, and therefore we have to keep this close. And this is also the advice of our lawyers. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. We will now be going to John Willing at the Ottawa Citizen.
Hi, Kina. Thank you. Question for Steve Kay or Michael Morgan. With regards to the RTG's root cause findings regarding the gearbox loosening on the train on September 19th, was it found to be a problem specific to this train, or is there evidence of low torque bolts on gearboxes on other trains as well?
Maybe I'll start, John. It's Steve, and then Michael can give some more details. The thing is that's the issue. That's what the return to service plan is going to have to include. It's now that they know that it's related to bolts that came loose on the gearbox on one particular train. The issue is going to be how extensive of a fleet check do they have to do on all the parts and safety systems of the rest of the fleet to ensure that that fleet is safe to be returned to service. So they're going to be looking at their documentation, all their quality control and their processes. to ensure that they can sign off before they can return that fleet back into service. But that will definitely have to be part of it, is checking particularly those components, especially on the trains where the bogies were replaced, to ensure that those were installed properly and they meet all the specifications that were required. Michael, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think you covered it well, Steve, just in terms of the issue that's been presented to date, and obviously more work to do on kind of the outcomes and next steps with returning the fleet to service.
Okay, thank you. For Mayor Watson, you voted for the request to have the AG look into LRT. And I'm wondering if this is something that you truly believe is necessary, or was it more of a vote to signal your opposition to a judicial inquiry?
No, when I vote for something, I vote for it as opposed to voting against something else. I think it was a good compromise and a better solution to have our independent Auditor General, who has tremendous credibility, to look into all of the issues that have caused such angst and frustration for our passengers, first and foremost, and then, of course, our staff who work the system, who are equally frustrated as our passengers are. So I thought it was, I commend Councillor Gower and Councillor Cloutier for bringing it forward. And I think, as you saw by the vote, it was 14-9. There was good support for that as a realistic, much more nimble a way of getting to some of the answers that we have, some of the questions that we have, as well as a fraction of the cost. Because I think you heard Natalie, our Auditor General, talk about, while she doesn't have an exact amount, it's significantly less expensive for taxpayers than a judicial inquiry, number one. And secondly, it could be done, I believe, in a much more efficient fashion than we've seen in past inquiries throughout the province of Ontario, which, as you know, through the memo from Mr. White, indicate long time periods and very significant dollars. And at the end of the day, we want our train system up and running safely as soon as possible, and not have staff preoccupied with an inquiry that could go 3, 4, 5 years, and not bring forward recommendations that would improve the system in that time frame. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we will be going to Taylor Blewett at Ottawa Sun.
Thank you. This question is for Mayor Watson as well as city staff. Can you say anything at this point about how much you expect the new Civic campus development will cost the City of Ottawa?
I can offer a comment. There's been no request as of today that I'm aware of for any costs. I'm sure at some point there will be, whether it's forgiveness of certain fees or other considerations, but at this point we have not received any request. I think the focus by the hospital, when they've been discussing this with me and others at the city, is to get the site plan approved, and then their next big issue is to get the province to sign off on the next to final steps so that we can get shovels in the ground as quickly as possible. I don't know if Mr. Willis has any other comments. Is Steve on the line? No. Steve K., you have anything else to add?
Mr. Mayor, no, you've stated it quite correctly. We have not had any financial requests. The hospital has been focused on all of their regulatory approvals. And as the mayor indicated, this was a necessary step in the sequence. The next step is a provincial approval of the plan. So if there are financial requests, we haven't got them to date.
Thanks. In a related second question, somewhat anyways, there's been concern about approving the master site plan for the Civic without having a specific plan set down to connect the Dow's Lake LRT station to the hospital campus. Why not insist that this be fleshed out before endorsing master site plan approval? And actually, I would love to hear from you both again on this.
Yeah, Taylor, I always find it interesting when something that's gone on 14 years is being rushed. I don't think it's being rushed. I think, if anything, the hospital is probably a little bit frustrated it's taken this long. But, as you know, Ottawa can be at times a challenging city because we have the NCC and we have two provinces, the federal government, a large landholder, and so on. But I think, as Mr. Willis can talk about this more specifically, but we heard today during council, there'll be many other opportunities where items come back on the Civic Hospital. And we are very much committed to seeing a proper pathway, either underground or over Carling Avenue, to connect the hospital with the LRT station. Those are funding issues that are going to have to be dealt with, but we have, several years of construction and work that will be done on the site, and tree planting that you'll see a 5-to-1 ratio. Every one tree taken down, 5 more will be planted. And I think the Civic has done a very good job of reaching out to the community. There are always going to be some community associations or individuals that will never accept any change whatsoever. They might want to maintain the status quo, and that's their right to do that. But I gave the example of former Mayor Harold Fisher, who was dealing with the pandemic when he was mayor, and his desire to see a world-class hospital built at the current Civic site. Well, fast forward another 100 years, and it's time for the old Civic to become the new Civic and really be a world-class facility for both teaching, research, and treatment. And I was very pleased that it was, I believe only 4 members of council voted against it. I wish it was unanimous, but that's again a very strong endorsement of a very exciting project that will be the single largest healthcare expenditure in the history of the City of Ottawa. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I may just add really quickly, through the site plan process, and master plan process, we've confirmed that both options are technically viable, and we're ensuring that as each step further approval happens, we keep the viability of both going. The next step will be a more detailed functional engineering study of the 2 options to find out what the costs are and which is actually more effective and more workable for everybody. So it's a continuing process, and we're absolutely committed to continuing to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nous allons maintenant passer à Antoine Trépanier à Radio-Canada.
We'll now move to Antoine Trépanier at Radio-Canada. Mr. Mayor, one of the powers that the Auditor General doesn't have, that a public judicial inquiry would have, and that is to go verify the documents of elected official. Was this a motive in your decision to support an AG audit rather than a judicial inquiry? Answer, no. That's the simple answer. Certainly, the Auditor General confirms that she works with the Integrity Commissioner. So if she ever stumbles across any problem with a member of council, she can discuss that with the Integrity Commissioner, who is responsible for inquiries into ethical behavior of members of council, the elected officials. Right? And my last question for you is concerning the 24th day without any train service. We still don't know today, and the city manager said so, when the service will start up again. So what's your impression then on this lengthy delay and the fact that we still don't even know anything about what's going to happen today? Well, yes, I'm frustrated, as well as the passengers, of course, and all the population of the City of Ottawa, including our personnel that are working quite hard on this file. But at the end of the day, it's important to have a date that we can trust fully, in which we're fully confident. So without the, when we receive a date from RTG, Mr. Kanalakis will work with the Philadelphia country that we hired to look into this, as well as our Security Commission, in order to re-examine the situation and see if this is a realistic, reasonable date, a date that is trustworthy. And when we have such a date, then we will communicate this information to the public. Everybody is waiting with bated breath. But at this point, we do not have any such date. And it's important for us to give a date that we can trust. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sue Sharing from On the City from the Burbs. Sue, are you on the line? Okay, so this concludes our media availability for today. Thank you for joining us. Merci d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. Have a great day.
Thank you for being with us today. Bonne journée.